Everyone's talking about AI, but let's be honest, most people still don't get it. Is AI taking over our jobs? Do you really need to code to stay relevant? Or is it actually much simpler than the hype makes it sound? Today, we are cutting through the noise with someone who's been in the middle of it all. From Qualcomm chips to Intel labs, from NASA projects to now leading research and development at Valeo for self driving cars. If it's cool, futuristic, and powered by AI, Saidam Sundaresan has been there. He's also a top AI creator on LinkedIn, writes the Gradient Ascent newsletter, has been featured in Forbes and Wired, and just authored a book, AI for the Rest of Us, with Bloomsbury. In this episode, we dive into the fears, the future, and the practical ways AI can empower all of us. Whether you're a teacher, nurse, accountant, a chef, a small business owner, or engineer. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is about AI for the rest of us. I hope you enjoy it. When you started writing this book, were you thinking about your family, friends, kids? Who were you actually writing it for?
A good question. I think I was writing for two audiences, to be fair. One is those who have no background in coding or mathematics, because when anyone thinks about AI, you immediately think, oh, it's got a lot of these jargons, equations, or you think, oh, I need to know a lot of coding to be able to implement these models. So I was writing for people who fell into neither bucket, and I've encountered a lot of those people in my life so far, and I wanted to do something for them. The second category is for the engineers and the folks who implement all of these things, and I wanted to do something for them because they have to explain the same thing over and over again to their bosses or their bosses' bosses who don't understand. But this is AI, it should be possible, but it's not always possible, right? So I wanted to give them a resource that they can use to explain why something is or isn't possible. So those are the two people I wrote it for.
I see a lot of my friends who are in tech right now. They have started to look for alternative means of income. Part of it is driven by what happened during COVID, but I think AI has kind of fueled the insecurity more because
Mm.
now a lot of these tech professionals are confused and they don't know how to keep up with all the new advancements in AI, and that insecurity makes them think that they cannot keep up with the rapid changes in the industry, and they're anxious. And do you think that they are right to be nervous?
I would say yes and no. It's natural to feel threatened or anxious when something that you've spent, in some cases, decades mastering and honing is suddenly being commoditized, right? Like writing good software is still a very valuable skill. If you are focusing on only writing good code and you don't expand your horizons, knowing fully well that AI is increasingly becoming better at writing code and remembering how different files tie up together, then you're just putting yourself in, it's like the ostrich that sort of when it's scared, apparently it just puts its head inside a hole and then pretends nothing else is happening,
Yeah.
like even though chaos is around it. So yes, everybody's right to be nervous. It's a seismic shift. If you spend the time that is needed to broaden your horizons and you focus on the areas where you want to build new expertise that is valuable, I mean, you will be needed. It's just that you have to focus on the things that make you unique and strong, and at the same time expand your horizons. That's the best way, because those are the things in your control. What happens because of AI is not in your control.
When you sent me the draft of your book and I read through it, I had this feeling that you kind of wrote it for this class of professionals where this anxiety might prevail.
Mm.
And do you think that this motivated you to write this book?
So the motivation for writing the book actually came a few years back. So this book has been in the works for 3 years, and the motivation to write it came a couple of years before that. I was working as an advisor to a team of space scientists, or heliophysicists to be precise, and they were doing this incredible work where they're trying to understand the sun, its properties, and how it has implications for humanity. And one of the things I found was like I had no idea of what they were saying about physics and helioscience. It was amazing to just be in the same room with them. But what I found very interesting is some of them were being tripped up by AI jargons and terms, and they felt completely unsure, where I felt I had a very confident footing.
Mm.
And I felt that if they have the ability to understand it, then they can apply AI for solving these problems in a more powerful way. And that was the inspiration for the book. So, for people to empower them to make right decisions, to understand the implications of AI, and sort of just to give them a sense of calm that it's actually a lot simpler than you think. Don't think about it being like, Skynet, because some people truly worry that it might be something like that. So that was the inspiration for the book. Just that's what motivated me to write it.
I think yes. So talking about jobs, right? So most people think that robots will take over jobs, like AI will take over jobs. Like, what is the biggest misconception you wish you could erase from this public conversation?
So I feel like it's being applied as a blanket statement in that AI is going to replace all jobs, but I feel that it's not necessarily true for all jobs. Yes, some jobs might no longer be necessary where things can be automated out, but new jobs will come and evolve and existing jobs will change. Like if you think about a job, it's like a stack of things that have to be done in a certain sequence, and the more expertise you have in each of those parts of the stack, the more valuable you are. As the stack changes, so do you, hopefully. And I see the same thing happening with AI. Now, AI is now becoming really good at certain aspects of the stack, and it's up to us to sort of leverage that and then evolve with the times and, see where the jobs take us. But like, if you told me 5 years ago that I'd be speaking to a computer, to write programs in English, I'd be laughing at you saying,
Yeah.
what are you saying? But now look at a lot of people who are just able to prompt, just use speech or even just type things in and then get a facsimile of a version of code that works for them. The same is true for a lot of other tasks. So yes, there will be some displacement, but I don't feel that it's doomsday where every single job that we know today is going to go off. There's definitely going to be a change. Like, again, calling on a bit of history, if you think about the printing press or the loom, those jobs evolved. Same thing for accountants and calculators and computers. We still need accountants and we use their services a lot. The job hasn't gone away, it's evolved. And I expect the same to be true, but maybe to a larger extent.
Yeah, you mentioned about coding, and I see a lot of people say, so I see there are two opinions, right? One is
Hmm.
people saying, if you want to learn AI, you need to learn to code. And then the other side is, especially after we have the coding agents here right now, so people are saying that, okay, you might not need to learn coding anymore. What is your stance on this? Do you think coding is really necessary if you want to be in AI?
I think it depends. The answer is, if you're looking to build models or you're looking to build products with a lot of engineering involved, learning to code doesn't harm in any way. It's a wonderful skill, and especially using AI to learn how to code in this day and age is a great way to learn the internals. But is it for everyone? I don't think so. So if you're an executive, you're short on time, you're making decisions that affect your company, or if you are somebody who is, you got extremely deep expertise in an area and you don't necessarily need coding in your day to day, but you want to augment your research and other work with AI, you don't need to learn how to code to learn AI. And that's part of the reason I wrote the book. It was addressing, these types of people where you can understand the internals of how AI works, what it can and can't do as of this day. It's still changing, but just not saying that coding is a prerequisite is sort of missing the point. It really depends on what your goals are. So if you are an engineer looking to build a career in AI, chances are learning to code won't hurt your chances. Same thing for product managers. But I'm seeing a lot of product managers these days who are using vibe coding to build mock-ups of the feature or the ideas they want their engineering teams to implement. And previously you had to get buy-in from your engineers. You don't need to do that. For those types of situations, learning to code is helpful, but I don't think it should be a barrier to entry.
You talk in your book about having the knowledge of the internals. on how AI works, but still be flexible enough to not learn to code, right, and still do their job, right? Is that what you mentioned?
Yeah, it's like if you learn how it works or how it doesn't work, and you're able to make sense of the changes that are coming with new research or new products. That's and if that's enough for you to do your job or learn or achieve your goals, then yeah, learning to code won't hurt your chances. Let me be very clear. I think it's a fantastic thing to do, especially now, given how easy it is to learn. But it's not a barrier to entry.
Makes sense. So let's take a practical example. So let's say if
Hmm.
if I'm a teacher, nurse,
Hmm.
or a small business owner, what's one way AI could actually help me tomorrow?
For teachers, obviously, lesson planning. If you want to understand or gather the latest research from different corners of the world about a particular topic, just being able to summarize and organize those thoughts into a coherent lesson plan, you can actually create new types of open book exams altogether. I think the for a teacher or someone like in the education side, I would say that just being able to use it to figure out what types of questions AI isn't able to answer, that would spark
Oh,
creative thinking, that would empower students to use AI and then come up with the answers as a combination of their own critical thinking and AI's vast resource of knowledge. I think that would be a fantastic use case. For small business owners, everything that you need to, from bootstrapping your business all the way to scaling it, you can get it done. You can automate things that were previously very manual and tedious for you. You can have new ideas, validate them very quickly. You can get the latest studies from the top consulting firms and have it synthesized into takeaways for you so that you know where the market is trending. You're only limited by your imagination.
I think any one of the other benefits that I see, especially with teachers, like when you're talking about the teachers, is like personalizing the lesson plans to each
Uh,
student's needs. Because we all went through that cookie cutter approach of everyone studies the same thing in the class. But I think now it opens up the opportunity to kind of personalize to each student's needs, because not every student has got the same need, right? And that
so
can apply to every other profession, whether you're a small business owner, you can personalize for your customers or customer segments. If you are a nurse, you can do it for patients, etc., right?
personalization, that's the key, right? And just to touch upon the teacher's point, an AI model cannot see if somebody is getting it or not, a student is understanding it or not properly, because what it doesn't understand yet is like the visual cues that you see. If you're teaching in a classroom, when you look at a student and their eyes are glazed, they're probably not paying attention. Or
Yeah.
if they have this frown or a sense of worry on their face, you know that they're not understanding it. But uh, y- you know AI, on the other hand, is infinitely patient. So it can say the same thing over and over and over again without getting bored or frustrated. Because sometimes, as teachers, it can be incredibly tiring and frustrating to teach a class of 40, 50 kids, and one particular kid is asking you the same thing over and over again, and you get angry and frustrated. So, melding these two types of resources together suddenly creates a very personalized experience where the teacher steps in when the student isn't getting it, and
Hmm.
the AI is always available to guide, help you revise, understand things 24/7.
Yeah, makes sense. I recently I was talking to one of my friends, and she's a school teacher, right? And she told me that she's not worried about AI replacing her. What she's rather worried about is that her students are already using AI, and because she hasn't begun to understand it properly, she doesn't know how her students are using it, and she kind of feels like she's falling behind,
Mm.
right? And it struck me. I was thinking that what if the bigger danger is not AI taking our jobs, rather humans refusing to adapt these new tools?
Do you mean that humans not using these tools and being left behind, or do you mean humans using these tools so much that they are left behind because they lose their sense of critical thinking?
No, I think there might be a protest against adoption of AI tools, and
Right.
you reject using them at one point. Do
Hmm.
you see that coming?
It's possible. Obviously, we really can't predict the future. But one thing I do see quite a bit is we're seeing. I'll actually draw a parallel with photography where I've seen this happen before. Like you've had painting, which was considered sort of this classical art of replicating the world, and then when photography first came out, people were up in arms saying this is not art. This cannot be hung in museums. And lo and behold, we're having photo galleries and whatnot. And then a newer version of that came much later, where people were complaining that Photoshop or other tools where you post process your digital images are sort of not preserving the natural world, or any image as it is, it's amplified. And now you have one step further, where you have AI generated images, where you're saying, oh, it's, it's not real, it's fake, or it's manipulating. So there is a line along each of these shifts, and I feel that for some people they will continue to remain purists, and fair play to them if they want to. But for most people, AI is sort of lifting, it's like a rising tide that's lifting all boats. So if you are a boat that's part of this tide, you're naturally going to do more that you were probably not able to do previously. So it's definitely down to choices.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, taking that photography example, I know some of my friends who are very, very like, so one of them is a professional wildlife photographer, right? And there are others who do photography for passion. And I think more than the act of clicking pictures, the interest comes from them traveling to a place, putting up in that place for a few days, and then clicking pictures and being in their community and group of like-minded people. Especially with wildlife photography, it's like, it's adventure plus
Mm.
retreat plus interest and passion. So it's not just, yeah, it's not just the act of clicking pictures, right? Yeah, maybe in editing and things like that, but I don't think they will just end up generating photos for the sake of just generating. And then AI then becomes a tool of enhancing your existing
Yeah.
skills rather than just replacing it completely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually tried this as a thought experiment a couple of years ago. So I had gone on a trip to Mount Rainier to catch a sunrise, and it probably still is one of the, most magical moments of my life. And I tried to describe that scene to a very primitive version of Midjourney, and it was able to churn out a ridiculously close analog to what I had captured with the camera. And I was shocked. This is before the quality jumped significantly, right? And then that got me thinking, is like, what about this picture is memorable for me? Is it the fact that it looks fantastic, or is it the fact that I went through this experience where I saw it in person and this is a way that it's imprinted in my brain? And for me, it's the former. It's not really, like you said, the act of clicking. It's that whole experience of being in the moment, being out there in nature, and just taking it all in. And on the other side, you have people who will never get that opportunity, who
Mm,
to travel, to hike for whatever reason, or they might not be photographers for whatever reason, right? For
mm.
them, all of a sudden, they're just limited by their imagination. So then you have these sets of people who want to be creative but do not have the opportunity, all of a sudden being afforded these opportunities. So, it's trade-offs everywhere, as with AI, it's always the case.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Do you do a lot of photography?
In another life, before my kids were born, we used to travel a lot, my wife and I, and capture pictures of nature. So that used to be something I was very passionate about. Still am, just don't have the time for it.
Yeah, I know. I know. Kids change a lot of things. You see,
Absolutely.
I think, yes. So talking about jobs, right? So most people think that robots will take over jobs, like AI will take over jobs. Like, what is the biggest misconception you wish you could erase from this public conversation?
So I feel like it's being applied as a blanket statement in that AI is going to replace all jobs, but I feel that it's not necessarily true for all jobs. Yes, some jobs might no longer be necessary where things can be automated out, but new jobs will come and evolve, and existing jobs will change. Like, if you think about a job, it's like a stack of things that have to be done in a certain sequence, and the more expertise you have in each of those parts of the stack, the more valuable you are. As the stack changes, so do you, hopefully. And I see the same thing happening with AI. Now, AI is now becoming really good at certain aspects of the stack, and it's up to us to sort of leverage that and then evolve with the times, and see where the jobs take us. But like, if you told me 5 years ago that I'd be speaking to a computer, to write programs in English, I'd be laughing at you, saying,
Yeah.
what are you saying? But now look at a lot of people who are just able to prompt, just use speech or even just type things in, and then get a facsimile of a version of code that works for them. The same is true for a lot of other tasks. So yes, there will be some displacement, but I don't feel that it's doomsday where every single job that we know today is going to go off. there's definitely going to be a change. Like, again, calling on a bit of history, if you think about the printing press or the loom, those jobs evolved. Same thing for accountants and calculators and computers. We still need accountants and we use their services a lot. The job hasn't gone away, it's evolved. And I expect the same to be true, but maybe to a larger extent.
Yeah, you mentioned about coding, and I see a lot of people say, so I see there are two opinions, right? One is
Mm.
people saying, if you want to learn AI, you need to learn to code. And then the other side is, especially after we have the coding agents here right now, so people are saying that, okay, you might not need to learn coding anymore. What is your stance on this? Do you think coding is really necessary if you want to be in AI?
I think it depends. The answer is, if you're looking to build models or you're looking to build products with a lot of engineering involved, learning to code doesn't harm in any way. It's a wonderful skill, and especially using AI to learn how to code in this day and age is a great way to learn the internals. But is it for everyone? I don't think so. So if you're an executive, you're short on time, you're making decisions that affect your company, or if you are somebody who is, you got extremely deep expertise in an area and you don't necessarily need coding in your day to day, but you want to augment your research and other work with AI, you don't need to learn how to code to learn AI. And that's part of the reason I wrote the book. It was addressing, these types of people where you can understand the internals of how AI works, what it can and can't do as of this day. It's still changing, but just not.
If I had only 30 minutes a week to learn AI, what would you tell me to do?
So I would say, pick one tool that you feel is very interesting for you to learn. Can just be as simple as a chatbot, and pick one problem that you have that bothers you. It's like scratching your own itch, and then use this tool to solve that problem. Learn how this tool helps you in solving that problem. And the more time you spend with it, the better you get at mastering that tool. And then you move on to the next one and incrementally sort of work your way through different AI tools. Or if, for example, if you're not a technical person, if you are a technical person, then start using AI to both teach you about itself, at the same time also about how to use it to build things, because that's the way that, at least personally, I learned a lot. And for those who are technical, it's probably the best time to use AI to enhance their skills. So 30 minutes a week, doesn't matter if you're busy, spend it on a problem that you want to solve, because then at bare minimum, if you don't learn anything, at least you've solved the problem you have. And best case scenario, you've learned how to use a tool innately, and you can then go from there.
Yeah, great advice. I think as you start learning AI, I would also like focus on within that 30 minutes a week, spend some time to see how you can use AI to buy more time to learn more.
Well said.
I think that might be another way of like thinking for the long term because yeah, 30 minutes a week is too short. But this is by the way, this is the question that I get often from a lot of people that we don't have time. We can only spare 30 minutes to an hour a week.
I
And
would say use this tool called Notebook LM if you've not
yeah,
used it so far. It's brilliant. It's one of the best learning tools I've come across in recent times.
yeah, it sense. The way I see it, right? So AI is either the best thing to happen to humanity or the beginning of the end, as many say, depending on who you ask, right? Why do you think there's such a massive gap between the hype and the reality with AI?
I feel we are not having many conversations about the fundamental principles and what is possible and what AI is really, to be honest. I mean, it is evolving every single day. And even for those in the field, we're being constantly surprised by what these models are able to do on a daily basis. The problem, though, is you see one set of people maybe just saying, oh, this thing came out now, it's going to completely replace such and such tools or such and such types of jobs. And then you have another set who's like trying to calm down the hype and actually say, no, hang on, it's not that easy. You need to do some more. So there's a bit of translation, I feel, that is lost when people are communicating these ideas. And for the layperson or for somebody who falls into neither camp, they find it very confusing. All of a sudden, ChatGPT or Claude or something is coming out for their jobs, or the next second it's not, and it's not as good enough. GPT-5 is an excellent example, right? I mean, it's amazing to see something that is really, you know, that was possibly not even feasible 2 3 years ago. All of a sudden, it's just happening, and we're taking it for granted. That
Yeah.
actually tells you the bar is just going up and up, and people's expectations are going up and up. So I feel the gap between hype and reality is more of a translation problem, not really a situation.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of time, right? So as it matures and gets more embedded into our day to day, I think the hype will kind of settle. Like one of the things I tell when I talk to people is the day when you start hearing less about AI, or everyone starts to talk about something else on social media, that's when you know that okay, we have gone through
Things
that
are
hype
maturing.
cycle and AI has kind of embedded into real use cases.
It's and the challenging bit about AI, I feel, is that it's evolving so rapidly. So that hype cycle seems to continue and prolong more. And oftentimes we're really missing the amazing things we can do today with the tech that is already available. And you're right, you're absolutely right. When we hear less on social media about how this thing is going to be the next whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's probably when things are maturing. And to be honest, another way we can get there is by people just playing, spending time with AI, understanding what it can and can't do. AI doesn't come with a user manual. We're actually writing the user manual as we go. So for us to be able to just spend more time with it, understand how it works behind the scenes. I'm not saying you need to code GPT from scratch, but I am saying spend time with the assistants you use,
Yeah.
and then that gives you a real sense of, okay, I feel it can do this really well, and I can use it for this. It doesn't do this so well, I really need to spend more time trying to tune it to get what I want. So that grounds you more in the reality and less in the hype cycle, I feel.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. We keep hearing about AI being biased, uh, but I feel like even human decision making is biased too. So what is actually worse, human judgment or machine judgment?
Oh, that's a tricky question. So these models are trained on data sets we created or curated in some shape or fashion. So they reflect our biases depending on which part of the data was used to train these models. So in a sense, these biases are baked into these models. The only difference I feel is like, we might be blind to our biases. Most people are. And these models are blind to their biases. They don't yet know that they're being biased. Depending on the criticality of the use case, either of those choices can be worse. Like, for example, if you are using AI to decide who gets a loan, and you just don't have any human in the loop to verify the situation, you just use the model that was provided to you, then that's AI bias being worse, because obviously, depending on the type of data that was used to train this model, you could have people who are technically eligible just being discriminated against for some bias that was baked into the data. Conversely, if you have a very strong point of view and you refuse to change it, even though like AI models might suggest otherwise, then your human bias is worse. So it's very contextual, I feel. But in the wrong hands, I would say that AI models with bias baked in are worse, because the people using those models may not know the biases that lie within. And they may be doing things in the best intention,
Hmm.
but the model may be propagating the bias.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like oftentimes we when we think about AI models being biased, I also see it sort of reflects the bias we have got in humans as well, because that's the data it's using to learn from. But I think with humans, I think humans using AI is where it makes the difference, because if the
Yeah,
model is biased and the human does not intend to put that bias in, and they don't understand, that's where the problem begins.
absolutely. Absolutely. If you don't understand where the bias potentially is in your data, and you are not literate enough to understand that this model comes with those biases, then you won't know where to step in and reverse certain decisions or alter certain decisions. And that's catastrophic in certain cases.
Yeah. And in on that point, right? So I see that people love to say that AI is create, especially with generative AI, right? So AI
Hmm,
is creative now. So it can create,
hmm.
like, it can write poems, it can write songs, compose music, etc., etc. What I tend to think is that creativity, or do you think it's just remixing?
I would say it's remixing, to be very honest, because even take any of the famous human creators who are out there, right? They're all remixes of their inspiration. So, technically speaking, if you say somebody is creative, they are remixing something that inspired them. There's this I don't know where this anecdote comes from, but it really hit a chord with me. I heard that there was this particular art teacher who took her students to a museum and asked each of them to paint a particular picture. So as the students were painting, the objective was to exactly replicate what they saw as a study. And as they were painting, one of the students was complaining that, they weren't able to replicate certain aspects of the picture. And she said, pay special attention to where you feel that resistance, because that's where your originality is coming. So if you're just trying to mimic others, it's fine. But then if you focus on the areas where you're trying to deviate from that, that's where your point of view comes in. And I feel that that's remixing, right? In a sense. And the same is true for AI as well. It's just that it's much more patterned remixing.
Yeah, makes sense. I think a lot of these, I think I believe that creativity comes from the imperfection that you have within you. So even if you are taking inspiration or copying someone else's work, even if you're a painter and you do that, I
Hmm.
think your own imperfections is where it makes the difference, and brings your own originality in that sort of context. Days. So basically, we're talking about AI, and we hear the market out, and it seems like AI is everywhere. But we
Hmm.
also know that most people don't get it. Do you think it's a failure of the tech industry, or is it a failure of how we educate the society?
It's probably more of a literacy and translation problem, like we talked about earlier. I feel like, from a tech perspective, right, there is a lot of pressure to ensure that you're adopting the right AI initiatives and that they sort of knock the ball out of the park almost. And therefore, they are bound sometimes to make promises that may not be happening immediately or in the next release. It may take a lot more time to manifest. And then on the other side, you have education, which is sort of lagging behind, where people are not understanding how things are working. And then they tend to believe some of these promises. And then that's where the gap comes. So if you sort of have, as a person, right? Not as as part of a tech company, just as an individual. If you just understand how this works, what's happening behind the scenes, what is feasible, what isn't feasible, both through experience and through reading the right resources, then you sort of develop this sense of what is truly possible and a well-made promise versus what is something that perhaps has the undercurrent of maybe securing more funding or things like that. So it comes through experience and time spent learning.
Yeah, I think that's insightful. Great insights. Thank you. So, Sairam, we do a rapid fire round in this
Okay.
podcast, where I'll ask you like five, six questions, and we'll do it like a rapid fire, right?
Yeah.
Are you ready for that?
Okay, let's give it a shot.
All right. Is AI the next electricity, or just another dot-com bubble?
Electricity.
In 5 years, will AI be invisible in our lives or unavailable?
I would say I'd like it to be invisible because that means people have learned to use the tech and it's a ingrained part of our lives.
Like the transistor in a radio?
Exactly. Like something that we use and take for granted.
Yeah. Is prompt engineering a real skill or just a temporary hype?
It's somewhere between the two. I feel like the longer term is going to be much more nuanced. And right now, I don't think it's fair to call it either.
What's more dangerous? People who don't understand AI, or people who think they do?
Both are dangerous in different ways. Like people who don't understand AI and are using AI tools to make decisions are dangerous, and people who think they know AI when they don't and are building these tools are even more dangerous. So I would say that AI literacy is something that's absolutely vital.
If AI vanished tomorrow, what would humanity miss up most?
Ooh, uh, A lot of things, I think, we use it for research, for drafting, and all of that. I would just think social media content creation for just being tongue in cheek.
Yeah, I'll miss it a lot. What's one way AI will change our daily life in the next 5 years that nobody is talking about yet?
I think visual thinking, the ability to teach through videos or diagrams that are completely synthesized on the fly, where we are sort of working with an AI tool to visualize our thoughts and then use those thoughts to teach others who are around us. I think that's going to be something maybe not many people are talking about, because you always talk about how it's great at teaching you stuff, but just being able to translate what's in your head into diagrams and a visual model that you can then interact with, I think that's going to be amazing.
Nice. Okay, that ends the rapid fire round. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Really, really good answers. If you would like to give a piece of advice to the rest of us, what would it be?
I would say spend the time with AI tools and learning about it. It doesn't matter where you're starting from. Just spend the time, because, as I said, we are writing the user manual as we go. And the more that you are intentional about using it, you'll make better calls, you'll make better decisions and waste less time. And it will help amplify your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. Just spend more time with AI.
Finally, where can people buy your book when it is out, and when is it going to get published?
So the book is coming out on October 30th. So if you search for AI for the Rest of Us on Amazon or Bloomsbury's website, you will find the book available. The pre-orders are already started, and yeah, I'm excited to see get it into the hands of readers and get their feedback.
Nice. I wish you all the best, Sairam, with the book. And thank you very much for joining me. It was a really insightful discussion.
My pleasure, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.